Hi, everyone. Welcome to CXPS Knowledge Sharing Module number 10. This week, we bring to you Alan Hoffler, and he's talking about transforming your client experience through the power of storytelling. CX, EX, these are such difficult concepts to communicate both internally and externally. And when you find your story and communicate it well, it begins to change everything. Really look forward to what Alan has to share with us this week. For those of you watching this that are not yet members of CXPS, please visit clientexperience.org and you can learn more about our community, and we welcome you to join us. For those who are members, you can see us this coming Friday in the live Q&A with Alan, where you can ask your questions and spend some time networking and learning from your peers as well. I'd like to take just a minute to say thank you to all of our sponsors. We appreciate you being a part of our community and helping us make all of this possible. And with no further ado, let me turn this over to Alan. I've seen him speak and present before, and I have no doubt you're going to enjoy this just as much as I do.
When I fly internationally, I have the overwhelming sense that this is an enormous world that we live in. You fly for 4, 6, once I flew 16 hours. You realize what a long way from home you are. But the last time I was flying back from an international visit, I was flying out of Amsterdam, headed to Boston to connect back to North Carolina. As I sat down and got situated in my seat, shared pleasantries with the woman beside me. Turns out she was from my hometown and taught at the same place that I teach. We started comparing notes and discovered we have lots of common people that we knew. This is not uncommon. We've even sort of adopted it as a social phrase that we have 6 degrees of separation. That I know a guy that knows a girl that knows a girl that knows a guy that knows you. Just 6 people separate me from everyone on the planet. There have been plenty of studies to try to debunk this theory, but the idea, I think, is valid. We're all pretty well connected. 4 students at Albright College made a game of this for Hollywood, saying that there's 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon because he's been in so many movies with so many people that eventually every actor or actress can be connected back to him. I think that's true in the world of client experience. That eventually we're connected to the clients that we aspire to serve and currently have. Because at the core, clients are people. People have feelings. They want to share. They can be moved. They're not judged solely by a number or can't be governed by a tool or predicted by analytics. Oh, sure, we can get trends and ideas, but people are complicated. Our desire should be to find the connection with them. Then there's experience. That just means it's something that's happened to me. What I've discovered is that people like to share their experiences. We like to find common experiences. That's what our friendships are based on. I find that you like a certain type of movie and we have movie night at my house. Or I discover that you like to play disc golf and we go out together to play around. Or I discover that you like communication or have kids that are the same age as my kids. And suddenly we have something in common to share. The way people have shared those common experiences for millennia is through the world of stories. I believe that stories are the most powerful form of communication, not just because they're easy to tell, but because of their memorability and the moral that they carry. Today, in our brief time together, we'll take a look at how those stories can help our client experience as well as building our business. At its core, client experience in CXPS is about points of contact. About finding and reacting to the elements that we know and can manage about our customers and our prospects. That's perhaps nowhere more important than when we're not there, when we're not governing what they see on our website, when we're not on the phone with them or face-to-face with them. What they say about us when we're not around could be the most important story of all. I've lived this both in the good and in the bad. I had a client one time asked if they could blog about our workshop that we gave. I said, sure, great free press. This is great. But the thing he said right front and center, put it in bold letters on his blog, was that Alan said that content doesn't matter when you communicate. What a silly idea. Did I say that? Here was a client telling a story that was harmful to my brand and in fact completely contrary to what I believe in and would share. But there are plenty of good stories as well. Just recently I had a client call or a prospect that I didn't know, and she said, "Hey, a coworker of mine took your class." When I looked it up, it had been 5 years since she'd been in our workshop. And she said that our leadership program absolutely needed what you had to offer. My sales pitch was really boiled down to saying, yes, I can do it. All because of a story, a shared experience from a client to another peer. Stories are powerful and memorable. At our core, we want to be trusted. But if I don't know you, it's difficult to trust you. How then can I be trusted when I'm an unknown? Perhaps the quickest way is for us to find something in common. If I find something in common with you, then I'm more likely to trust you. And the best way to do that is to tell a story that you believe applies to you. All of this is centered around one of my favorite words in communication, the word connect. What I've discovered is that connect really means that you and I have something in common, and that makes me want to listen to you because ultimately I want to have that shared experience. Aristotle and the Greeks used this as the word pathos, as the emotion that went behind a message. And Aristotle believed that it was one of the key methods of persuading an audience in his world of rhetoric. I just like to use the word connect because I don't speak Greek. When we connect, you'll want to listen. But how do we connect with someone that we don't know? Where do we find these common points? Research is key. And certainly if we want to understand and reach our audience, we need to know who they are, what they like, what they don't like, and find a way to analyze them. That's fantastic to use the tools that are available to us. Everything from Google to Facebook to our own analytics to surveys. We need to know and understand what our clients think, feel, and believe. But at its core, we need to be able to reach out to them and bring them in. I think there's 2 stories that would help us do this. The first is a story about me, maybe my company, that would reach out to you and connect with you. Common points that you would identify with. And the second would be a story of my clients that would make you realize that you're just like they are. And therefore, I can be trusted. 2 types of stories, same technique in telling them, same power in how they're remembered and shared. We can go back to our fairy tales that we learned as kids. Little Red Riding Hood, a story that says, don't trust strangers. By the way, who wants to read their kids a story about a big bad wolf right before they go to bed? Or there's the 3 Little Pigs, that hard work really pays off. Or maybe Beauty and the Beast is that you can't judge a book by its cover, and that what's really valuable is deep inside us. Morals that we love for our kids to take with them. But the key is to get the listener to imagine that they're in a story. Those children at bedtime can think that they're the princess, can think that they're the knight in shining armor. They believe they're in the story. What do our customers and clients believe when we tell our stories? See, if it's all about me, then ultimately you fail to recognize why you're listening. Donald Miller in the Story brand, one of great methods for telling stories about companies, recognizes this and says that you need to make the customer the hero. We're not the heroes. We're not here to save the day. They're the heroes. Make them identify with the moral of the story. How do we get to control that narrative of what they say and feel? Well, the answer is through that common word, experience. Recently, we had to repair an air conditioner in our home. It was going to be a very expensive venture, and I found myself really kind of not knowing the market well enough to know who to call. And I called several to get several quotes. First guy that shows up, we start talking, and he's just talking to me about things he saw in the house and whatnot. We weren't talking about HVAC at all. And sure enough, we found a common experience. It was through the world of aviation, which has nothing, best I can tell, to do with HVAC, but he was sharing with me about his piloting. We talked about the plane that he flew. I'm a private pilot. That interested me. We spent probably 15 minutes not talking about HVAC. But when we did get around to talking about HVAC, he went above and beyond And gave me some advice on some other repairs that we were having done around the house and a renovation that we were considering, was talking about how we might reconfigure part of our home. And suddenly he became a trusted, valuable resource to me. It wasn't a surprise then when just a few weeks ago, a friend of mine asked, "Hey, I've got a new house," as a first-time homeowner. He said, "Turns out we got to repair our air conditioner and I don't have anybody. Do you know someone?" Well, I bet you can imagine who I came up with to recommend. Simply because in a shared story that started with aviation and went through renovation, I felt like I could trust this man. At least in the work that he did for me, he was trustworthy, but I really don't know anything else about him. I just know about my experience, and I was quick to share it, to give that recommendation to a friend. Of course, there's negative experiences as well. If you'd like to get some advice about how to fill out a FAFSA form, I can share with you my experience about how their website doesn't work. It's confusing. They don't answer the phone. And the whole process really is sort of flawed from the very premise to give information I don't wish to give out for benefits I'm probably never going to receive. I had already heard that, by the way, before I ever filled out the form. And just recently, I found it to be true. My expectations were low, and if it wasn't for the word required in bold letters sent to my daughter's email, there is no way that I would participate in that activity. Both good and bad stories are quick to be shared by your clients. When we tell stories, we tap into one of the most powerful forces in decision making. We call it the power phrase of persuasion. It's a derivative of the phrase, "in my experience." We tend to trust our experience more than facts, more than observation. It's what we experience that drives our trust in a method or course of action. We'll also trust the experience of others if we trust them. It doesn't have to be that phrase. If you rewind the tape of this, you'll find that I've used the power phrase on you many times already in this talk. It's words and phrases like, "what I've discovered, I've found, I've come to realize, I've observed, the data that I look at has led me to believe, in my opinion on this matter." Those are all experience-based phrases. If I begin a sentence, "when I taught high school math as a 22-year-old, I discovered that," whatever I say next can't be argued with. It's what I discovered when I was doing something. You may have completely different views of education, but it allows us to begin to have a conversation and win you over. One of the stories that I encourage you to tell is the story of doubt. The story of when you weren't sure that things would work out, because more than likely your clients have those same doubts. The most popular phone call we get is this phone call asking for people to increase confidence in their public speaking. Then I confess to them that I still get nervous. I've been doing it for over 3 decades. I still get nervous when I speak. It's okay for you to feel nervous, but let's change the focus from how we feel to what we do. Because I've experienced that I can still act even when I'm nervous. I just slipped in one of those phrases for you right then. But it shares the doubt that I share with almost everyone that comes through our workshops. What's the doubt that your clients face? How can you capture that through the power phrase of persuasion? Practically, telling stories is something you can get better at. Yeah, we like to think that our Uncle Fred is the best storyteller in the world and he was just born telling stories, but come to find out, I have never found not one person ever who was born speaking, which means it was a skill that they developed. Sure, their personality might chime in and make it easier, but ultimately communicating well is something we can all do better. In our brief time today, we're just going to give sort of 3 tips on how you can tell better stories that will capture and engage your clients, make them see themselves in the stories that you tell. For full disclosure, these tips come from Marcus Buckingham. He says there's 3 things to make a better story. We ought to get better at that if we want to use them in our marketing and client engagement. 3D. First, we need better details. Engage the senses. Pay particular attention to what you're experiencing in your brain while I tell you about the house that I grew up in. I grew up in Florida. Our house was built of cinder block with stucco on the outside of it. We had a circular drive, basketball goal mounted above the garage door. You would frequently come over to our house and hear that ball bouncing or the sound of boys playing in the front yard. We were outside a lot in Florida. But when you walked in that front door, just off the foyer was the kitchen. And immediately you'd be hit by smells of what my mom was cooking. My friends rapidly discovered that mom made cookies right before I came home from school every day. If they showed up right after school with me, they would probably get some homemade chocolate chip or perhaps those date nut pinwheel cookies. On the other side of the kitchen was my dad's study. It was a quieter place. It was sort of his cave, if you will. He didn't play lots of music or have much noise there, but there was lots of mementos of his work and stacks of books and projects that he had ongoing, cameras being disassembled, and diagrams of what he was cooking up for his next project. Behind the house were ferns and palm trees, and we had a ditch that outlined our property in the back. Wild animals, squirrels, snakes, alligators even. Very, very common. Now think about that house that I just described for you. I didn't tell you about the bedrooms. I didn't tell you what color it was. I didn't tell you anything else about the house. But my guess is that you know in your mind what color it was, that you have a picture of what size lot it was on. You have a picture of what the kitchen looked like and what the floor was made of. I didn't give any of those details, but I gave enough details that your mind picked up the rest. You captured the senses and expanded on it based on your knowledge. I tapped in just enough. It gave you just enough to know what my house looked like. My guess is that your picture of my house is nothing like our house because it was a unique custom-built home by the people that lived there before us. It was kind of weird in a lot of factors. Pretty sure you don't have a picture of what that house was really like, but it doesn't matter. Because through giving those details, I created a movie in your mind that kept your attention and caused your brain to think. Learn to give better details. Craft the details of what the experience is like when you interact with your clients. Craft the details of what your product is like. Find little details. I was watching a video the other day about boats, and they were highlighting this one little piece of the boat. And consequently, my brain was focused on that because they gave details. Second, create drama. Drama is the unknown in a story. Every movie, every show that you watch, and if you have teenage girls, every day of your life is filled with drama. We don't know how it's going to turn out. As I just look out, I've kept a list over the years of stories that have happened to me that I might could use somewhere in our speaking business. But when I list just the titles of these stories, you're going to go, ooh, I wonder what happened. The water moccasin, the alligator. I told you I grew up in Florida, a lot of that going on. Getting separated before the world of cell phones in an airport. Losing my luggage. Swim lessons. Getting stranded on I-95. My client who was on Shark Tank. Just the title of those is going to make you go, well, what happened? It sounds like a good story there. And we want to know how it worked out, and that causes me to stay tuned in. Drama keeps me listening. You might use the drama of the biggest challenge that your company has faced, or perhaps the biggest opportunity that's shown up. How did we face the fact that we didn't have any way to deliver what the client wanted? What a great drama story for me to tune into. Then, of course, if the details are right, and the person in the story has connection with me, then I want to know what you can do for me. Because no matter what kind of stories we tell, ultimately the listener is always listening through the filter of their experience, trying to decide, how will this impact me? Details run the movie. Drama keeps me tuned in. Dialogue creates the characters. We want to create people that you can know and identify with and ultimately like. Maybe that's your staff. Maybe it's other clients. If I tell you about my granddad, he was famous for just dropping one-liners that I still remembered. He's been dead now for over 25 years, but I still repeat what he had to say almost every day of my life. I repeat something he said. Things like, it don't cost but a little more to go first class. Turns out my grandfather was completely wrong. It costs a lot more to go first class, but his idea was, go ahead and pay a little extra and get what you really want, which I found as I mature to be more and more a philosophy that I think is true. Or I remember one time when my grandmother was chastising him for laughing at the wrong moment after she said something. He said, "I reckon I can laugh when I want to. I'm a grown man." And then one time after dinner, he sat back from the dinner table and patted his belly and goes, "I done swole up." I've created a character in your mind, even though you probably didn't know my grandfather. 6 degrees of separation, you could know him. But I've created somebody that's likable and somebody you could identify with. Create that in the people in your stories. Details, movie in my mind. Drama, I stay tuned in. Dialogue, I like and identify with the people you've created. 3 ways to make better stories the next time you go to telling about your experience. Marketing lets people know about us, but connection is what makes people want us. We can strive and through storytelling connect with people to make them recognize that they are involved in our stories, that just like our experience, they can have it too. Marketing makes people aware of us. Connection makes people want us. Next time you're out to tell your client what you can do for them, tell a story. Include the struggle. Talk about your experience. Give the details, drama, and dialogue. I believe that stories are maybe the most effective way to get those morals out that we want our clients to have. Look at your marketing materials. Look at the process of how you onboard a new client or even try to reach out to them. Take a look at your follow-up and make all of them a story. Make your story have elements to it that I would identify with. That'll make me see myself in your experience. I've come to believe that stories are maybe the best way to communicate. I'm asking you to tell them better starting today. You'll find it's a lot more fun than giving facts, and they're a lot more repeatable by the people you treasure the most, your clients. And when your clients tell other clients who tell other clients, you have access to everyone on the planet.
Alan, thank you so much. It's always great watching a master storyteller apply his craft. I enjoyed that thoroughly, and I do hope all of you enjoyed it as well. If you have questions for Alan or you want to engage with the CXPS community, visit clientexperience.org to learn more about the schedules. And if you are a member, check your inbox for the links to register and sign up for the Friday live Q&A with Alan. Look forward to seeing you there.